Welcome to another episode of the Boom Breakdown. We got a Boomachino here, tasting delicious Cafe Bustelo. Shout out with the espresso right here. Cheers, mate. Man, with the Conor and Khabib stuff, it's getting a little too crazy. I gotta be honest. It's one thing to talk shit about, your opponent, his skills, or this and that, but to take it to a whole nother level of religion and offensive stuff towards Khabib's wife, and then Khabib fires back about Conor being a rapist, and it's just getting a little bit too much between these two. I honestly think that Conor is just embarrassed about the first fight. He really wants redemption, and with the whole retirement talk, and now he's putting tweets out about coming back already, which I'm not surprised, motherfucker. I mean, obviously he wasn't really retired. I think it was just him trying to negotiate. Maybe that's one of the things. He wants that Khabib fight, and if he doesn't get it, he's kind of like, fuck you. He wants a share in the company. A lot of things in play, a lot of negotiations behind the scenes people don't see, and that's what causes this kind of standstill between fighter and UFC. But in my opinion, I just think the the hype and the fucking words that they're exchanging between Khabib and Conor is like, it's just too much. Someone's gonna get hurt out there because there's fans, there's young kids that, there's gonna be Muslims that are gonna take offense to this, and there's gonna be Irish people who are big Conor fans, and they're gonna clash one day, and things can get heated up, and not even Conor or Khabib get hurt, but innocent people that have nothing to do with this scenario get hurt just because of the stupid shit that they're saying back and forth. They say all is fair in war, and I understand pre-fight talk and promotion, but this is just crossing that line where it's a little bit too offensive, and you're gonna have to watch out. Keep your eyes out, look over your shoulder at all times, because you never know who heard what you said and take offense to it, and people get crazy these days. So I don't know. I don't like seeing it. I think they should, someone has to do something. It's kind of hard because when you're a grown ass man like Conor, like Khabib, you're going to do whatever the hell you want, no matter what someone says, freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. It's crazy. Um, to me, I feel like Conor got so much power in his rise in the UFC to the point where, we saw him throwing monster cans at Nate and his crew. And, we saw him picking up chairs against, Eddie Alvarez in that press conference. He's doing a lot of wild shit, throwing dollies through buses. Obviously, as a grown man, that's all on you. That's your fault. But the UFC gave Conor a lot of leeway and a lot of power because he was selling out, pay-per-views and venues. And they were like, listen, all is fair and whatever you want to do for fight promotion because you're going to bring us money, and money is power, right? And there's a lot of greed involved because a lot of money creates a lot of opportunity for guys to get reckless and not give a shit because the repercussions aren't really anything. You get a little slap on the wrist, get a fine, so you're like, okay, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want. And the more you do that, and the more you act in a way where you just don't care and there's no punishments, you're just going to keep doing it more and more and probably worse and worse. So I think that's a little bit of what plays a role in this with Conor. And now that the UFC has signed with ESPN, and there's a whole different structure with the pay-per-views, and they've got their upfront money from the ESPN deal, they're not really as reliant on someone who can cause chaos and say reckless shit and promote fights, because as you've seen, they've just made fight after fight now, and it's not so much like super fights or big name fights. It's fights that make sense, that it's just fights that should be put together because guys have earned their way and they're moving up in the divisions, and honestly that's good for sport, and that's what we want to see as fighters. Is it all makes sense, and the rankings to actually mean something. If you're number one, you fight number two. If you're number three, you fight number four. That's the way the sport should go if you're talking about legitimizing things. But obviously they're not completely on board with that, but it's gotten a little bit better since the ESPN deal. I think the legitimization of everything is coming more into play, and I think that it'll slowly get better and better. But that also is going to wash out that superstar status, that Conor McGregor, that Ronda Rousey, that explosion that some of these fighters have been able to make is going to kind of go away because it's not needed as much. The sport isn't going to call for it. It's not going to sell the pay-per-views out as much because, or maybe it will sell more pay-per-views, but at least the UFC isn't in demand with it because they're like, listen, we got our money. We're good. We don't need you to sell any more than it's already going to sell naturally because ESPN paid them up. Pay-per-view's what it is, and now that's the deal. So, you know, crazy shit going on with them too. I don't know why it's escalated to this. Obviously, after the fight, nobody blames Khabib for responding the way he did. I know it got out of hand, but the things that are said to you when people cross lines of religion and start, you know, verbally attacking people in your group in a very offensive way, you're gonna react, you know, and that's just how the world goes. So things are getting a little too crazy. Hopefully it slows down. Hopefully, you know, we can have some fucking world peace, right? Because we saw that picture come up with Conor and Khabib from way back when they were actually cordial, and it's just so funny to see that, and then to see how things, you know, get out of hand in the future after what, I don't know, a couple of years. It's just a fight, man. There's so much more to life than fighting somebody. You know, this is a sport, and the main thing is we need to treat it like a sport. You don't see basketball players and teams, you know, going to verbal wars and offending people's families, and you don't see that in the MLB or the NFL. You know, shit happens. Yeah, people get roughed up, but it never really crosses those lines where it's just too much. And you have to really worry about like two teams playing against each other or whatnot. So that's that. A bunch of fights announced. We got Neil Magny versus Vincent St. Luque. That guy's so impressive to me. Vincent St. Luque, hands up, very technical striker in the pocket. He's able to block shots, parry shots, and he's a very good counter striker. So you have to watch out if you want to be first. He's going to come back with something, and he keeps his guard up high, and he kind of gets in the exchange, and he's able to deflect punches and land punches of his own. And what a fight with him and Brian Barberina, who both showed such a display of heart. But Vincent St. Luque was able to show durability as well and get a late finish in that fight. Really impressive. I've seen Neil Magny fold in fights before, but he's got a great endurance as well, and he's long for the weight class, so we'll see what he's able to do. He's not the best guy on the ground, Neil Magny, but he's a guy that's a volume striker and a guy who's able to get a lot of decision victories. I just see Vincent St. Luque on the rise right now, and that's a hot Brazilian prospect right there. That's about to do big things. I think he could be a future champion as well in the weight class. So I'm going with St. Luque in that fight. I think he'll get the job done. I think he'll get a finish. Matter of fact, probably within like 2 rounds. If it goes to the ground, I think he can get a submission. I don't know if he'll want to take it there because his striking is so well versed. But a fucking Bumachino makes all better. St. Luque all day. We got Ricardo Lamas versus Calvin Kattar. Another good fight for the featherweight division. Big fight for Kattar to make his wave in the featherweight division. The guy has shown very impressive speed, very solid, crisp jab. He's accurate with his punches. I was really impressed with his fight a couple of fights ago. I forget who he fought, but he was touching up the guy. And then he lost to Moicano after that, but Moicano's a beast, and he's obviously in the top 5 or wherever he's at now. But that was a tough matchup for Kattar. But he's shown some really, really solid striking, real good head movement, good footwork. Comes from a good coaches as well with, I believe, Mark Delagrate's gym over there in Boston. And Ricardo Lamas is a guy who's been up there in the top echelon of the sport for a while. You know, fought guys like Aldo, Stevens. You know, he's a power puncher, but he's also very athletic, very technical himself. He's a good kickboxer. He has very nice kicks, very good movement himself. I think Kattar will have the range. I think he'll have a better jab. He'll be able to gauge the fight with that jab and use of range in the fight. And I think it's a matter of, does Lamas land that big shot, or does Kattar stay smart throughout the whole fight and outpoint Lamas for a decision victory? Um, you know, Lamas also took that devastating KO loss to Josh Emmett, and who knows what that does to a guy. I don't think Lamas is a guy to get mentally affected too much, but I think he's on just another notch up on levels of fighters than Kadar is, and I think Lamas will get the job done most likely by decision. I think he'll just land the more effective shots, and I think that maybe he might be just slightly more active and he's gonna have to get inside a little bit, and he does a good job at that. So I'll go with Lamas by decision. We got unfortunate news, man. Yoel Romero's out due to illness. Supposedly got pneumonia. Was in the hospital, and good things could come from this though. If we see Paulo Costa fill in, I mean that's a fight I definitely want to see. Paulo Costa jump in to fight Jacare. That'd be awesome to see. I really wanted to see Costa versus Romero. I thought that fight was fireworks right there. I was really excited to see those two physiques in the cage and see power meet power and see who's going to fold first. I don't think that fight would take place much on the ground, although Romero has the way more superior wrestling, and if he wanted to be smart, he would use that Olympic level wrestling to take Costa down and tire him out. Build that lactic acid up and then go from there. But now we're about to see Jacare versus Costa, possibly, potentially. That's what's in the works right now, I hear. And if that fight takes place, it's kind of a similar thing, except, Jacare's not at the level of wrestling as Romero is, but he's at another level of jiu-jitsu. So if he can get the fight to the ground, we haven't really seen Paulo Costa work too much from his back. I think that's the way to get the guy tired, because if you're going to strike with him, you got to constantly be alert about that power shot. But Jacare showed amazing boxing work in his last fight against Weidman, or I don't know if that was his last fight, but the fight against Weidman, it was very impressive how he was durable. He stayed in there. Weidman probably looked the best that he's ever looked striking wise in that fight, and Jacare ended up with a knockout finish. So he's made some big improvements in his striking, obviously, and I think he'll be able to hold up well with Paulo Costa, who seems to be somewhat of a slow starter in the early going of the first round. And Jacare is a guy that I think will have a little bit better technical striking than Paulo Costa, a little bit more activity, and I think if he's smart, he takes the fight to the ground and he finds a submission. I'm going to go with Jacare by submission. I think that's what he will do in this fight. So that's that, man. A couple good fights they booked. Couple fallouts. Couple crazy trash talks. Tune into my fight May 4th against Mitch Gagnon in Ottawa, Canada. We gotta do big things, man. It's time to fucking kill. There's no more Mr. Nice Guy over here. We'll go to Twitter. We'll see if there's any Twitter questions for us. UFC commentator, March Madness style bracket of MMA all-time greats. I'm not quite sure what he means. I guess like a tournament style of all-time greats. I guess super fight galore type of tournament. I don't think that would ever happen. Be cool to see, but that's something that will probably never take place. From Charlie11767, I'll answer your question even though you fucking spit hate all damn day on Twitter. Why do you feel that TJ relinquished the belt so fast? That's a tough question, man. It's hard to. I'm curious to see what comes out with this. Like, what did the guy fail for that automatically he's just like, fuck it, take my belt? Because I kind of know what I failed for, and it's not good, and it's illegal, and I did it on purpose, and I'm not going to fight it, and you caught me. That's like the only thing I can think of for someone to relinquish their belt so fast like that. Like, just kind of accepting that, like, you messed up. You took something illegal. USADA caught you. You know that you're not going to get your suspension shortened, so you don't want to hold up the division. That's great and all. It could be a business thing, a ploy where, he wants to keep the fan base on his side to some extent. Like, hey, guys, I messed up. It's my fault. I'm going to relinquish the belt so that the division can move on. and please forgive me for that, and stay on my side because I'm doing something good even though I did something bad. It's one of those things, like, I don't know if maybe that was his intention behind that or what it was, but really curious to see what comes out of that. uh Hopefully it's not something that's really going to tarnish his legacy. He was on his way to becoming one of the greats. I know he lost to Henry Cejudo, but we were going to see that rematch at 135. And I just really wanted to see that because I wanted to see if Henry Cejudo's really going to come up to the 135-pound division and stay there, and or if TJ was going to win that rematch and potentially, get the division moving again and defend his belt. I wanted to see TJ Dillashaw versus Moraes. I wanted to see, Aljamain Sterling come up and maybe get his shot at TJ Dillashaw or Moraes rematch. I wanted to see the division start to move on and see what would happen. But now we have a case where Henry Cejudo might be the guy that comes in, or Moraes. We'll see who wins that fight. But what's happening, because Henry Cejudo's not defending his 125-pound belt, and we still got some guys in the flyweight division making moves, who's the guy that beat Figueroa? Jussier Formiga, he's waiting. Joseph Benavidez, he's waiting. Like, is the division gone or no? Like, you got to tell us soon. We got to find out what's going on because Henry Cejudo is about to become a bantamweight if he wins this title. I imagine he's going to have to defend it. What is he going to win it and relinquish it right away? I just highly doubt that that's the situation. If he does win, if Moraes wins, I think it's just good for the division overall. He's a champion. He's a guy that would be a champion that would defend his belt. He doesn't pull out of fights. He stays active. He wants to stay active. He spoke about it before. So the best thing for the bantamweight division is if Moraes comes out on top, in my opinion. We don't know how long TJ is going to be out or what the scenario is. I'm sure when he comes back, he's probably going to get an immediate shot at whoever is the champion. So that's that, We'll see what happens with Dominic Cruz. If he's going to make a comeback, he's still dealing with his recovery through his shoulder surgery. Interested to see who they would have him fight if he comes back. We got Sterling and Pedro Munoz potentially being matched up. That's a great fight. That'll be a title contender fight, I'm sure. And Peter Yan obviously making his way up, and I'm sure they're going to move him up fast because that guy's a savage, and he's trying to fight anybody and everybody who's ahead of him. So, he's a guy who has an exciting performance every time out. So I'm sure the UFC is going to fast pace him up to the top 5 to see where he belongs. So exciting things to happen, but first comes first. We got to see what happens with Cejudo Moraes and really why TJ relinquished the belt and what's going on with him and how long he's going to be out for as well. So that's that. We got UFC Atlanta coming up, Holloway Poirier. I'm going to wait till the fight gets a little closer to start talking about that card and do another boom breakdown to go through those fights, make some fight picks, and please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, BrianBoom135. If you can give me a thumbs up and a subscribe to my YouTube channel, that's much appreciated. And we'll see you guys next time. Boom.